So hello everyone, I will start in a few minutes. So to begin with, I hope everyone is at home and safe during this fairly critical time. So I've been a Python developer for a few years, so I thought I would just share some of what I've been doing in Python. And I also teach on online sites such as Udemy, and therefore I'm also sharing some of what I do in those websites as well. So I will be doing this more or less every day for the next 25 days. So while most of India is in lockdown, the idea is just to be able to provide some education material for a lot of people who might otherwise not have access to education material. So in this, what I will be starting off with is the official Python documentation. So I'll be doing the official Python documentation and I'll be just programming through with it. So this is not going to be very comprehensive. If you're looking for something which is an absolutely comprehensive course, I would suggest you go and look online for one of them. But this is mainly a chance for you to interact and maybe solve some of your doubts with somebody in case you feel there is a need to sort of cross a certain barrier. So to begin with, this meeting is being recorded. And the recording will be uploaded on YouTube. So I hope everyone is okay with that. So it's almost 3 p.m. So I think I will get started in just a minute or so. I had posted a couple of links on my LinkedIn today about how to install Anaconda and also how to set it up on Windows. I'm assuming a lot of people may be using Windows. I use Linux. So, but still the commands will be the same inside Anaconda once you launch it in Windows or Linux. In Linux or Mac, you just have to open any terminal. All right, so the time is 3 p.m. I will get started. So a warm welcome to everyone. And as people join, they're welcome to join. So the way we will work is I will just go through little code segments, and every now and then I will pause to ask if anyone has any doubts or would like to interact. Each of these meetings will be limited to 30 minutes because to begin with, we all are still working even though we are in lockdown. And therefore, we will, for the first few days, I will be doing it once a day. If it does go well, then I might increase it to twice a day as per requirement. That's perfectly fine. So to begin with, I will go over to my Google. Okay. I would request everyone to put themselves on mute, please. Okay, just a request, everyone, please be on mute when you come in so that I don't have to actually mute you. Okay, so we will start off with the official Python tutorial, which is given by Python. All right, so this is what I'm going to do. So we will, because this is openly available information, and therefore I do not have to worry about infringing on anyone's intellectual property. So we will first start with some basic Python. And as time goes on, we will do maybe a little bit of NumPy and a little bit of pandas. We'll see how long it goes. So the first thing I'd like to show you about is in this one, we are going to get started with this is stuck. Let me move it out. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is I need to show you a link which is called Managing Conda Environments. And this is the link for setting up your Anaconda environments, right? So I would suggest that this link is also there in the YouTube video which I posted up. I would suggest that have this always as a cheat sheet when you're using Anaconda. So to begin with, I'm going to go and start my shell. So one thing I would recommend you, this is not totally essential, but in general, as Python developers, one thing I would recommend to all of you is always try to create an environment, right? Because an environment helps you to keep things within a certain container so that you can keep your projects separate and you don't have to worry about projects interfering with each other. So for this, all we have to do is go over to the very first command, that is Python create -n in Python is equal to 3. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new one. And I will call this, let's call this learn Python. And I will start once with Python is equal to 3. This is because I want to specify that my base Python environment should be 3, because sometimes it picks up a Python 2, particularly in some of the operating systems, there is an older version of Python 2, and it may take that as the base. So I will start with this. So the main advantage of having Conda and creating an environment and also installing your packages within it is that you can now maintain separate packages in separate environments. So this will take a while, and in the meantime, I will give you a little bit of background about Anaconda in general. So now that is downloading. At this point of time, I would like to ask if anyone has any doubts or would like to ask any questions about what I just talked about.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Arvind here. I just joined. Maybe I was like 2 minutes late, and I see this. Could you maybe just quickly run through one quick?
So basically, with Anaconda, it is always advisable to create an environment. So for example, an environment is like a virtual environment, which is like a container for your project. So the advantage of having a container is you can configure the requirements of a particular project and maintain it separate from every other project. So I created a special with this command, conda create name learn Python. And if you want to know how it came, you can just go over to this one. So this is the official documentation for how to manage environments in Anaconda. And these are the commands. So this is a command for creating an environment.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. So does anyone else have any doubt? Okay. All right. So the first thing we need to do once we do create an environment is we must be able to activate it. So for that, I'm going to just go to Conda activate learn Python. Now, before that, you must notice that in my case, I've already installed Anaconda. And when you install Anaconda, you will see this base on the left-hand side, all right? So once I execute this command, you see now it has changed. It has changed to learn Python because now my active environment is learn Python. So if you see here, these are all the packages that it has downloaded, all right? So we have specified Python is equal to 3 because I say that whatever it is, start with version 3. Anaconda will pick out the latest version of Python. And as of now, it is Python 3.8.2. So we are working with Python 3.8.2. And along with that, it needs certain dependencies, and these are those dependencies. All right. So just a little bit more about Anaconda, if you want to know what are the environments, you can just say conda info dash dash envs. So in my environment, in my local system, I have these environments, right? Because I do a lot of other projects, and Learn Python is just one of them. For some reason, I have. All right, so I'll go on. I just request everyone to please be on mute, unless you really want to ask any questions. So now that we've done this, the next thing we need to do is, since this is mainly going to be a Python for engineering course, I would be talking a little about
I think it's Shiv Kumar and Rajat. They need to mute themselves.
actually the problem is this terminal has gone to the very bottom and I don't know how to get out of it. Usually there is a Zoom app which somehow is not there now. Anyway, so I will keep going for now. As I said, there's going to be some teething problems in the beginning. So the next thing we need to do is we need to install NumPy, SciPy, and Matplotlib, right? Now, depending on your project, you may need more or less, right? Since these are the ones which I'll be talking about in this particular series, I'm installing these three, all right? So again, if you need to know more about this, just go over to this and it'll tell you how you can install packages, right? So the most important, this I would say is one of the most important cheat sheets as far as managing Anaconda environments is concerned. So what we'll be using is I'll be installing Jupyter, because Jupyter Notebook is a very convenient, what do you call it? A very convenient notebook for as an interactive notebook. So like, for example, I'll just do a little bit of Google search and these are. So Jupyter Notebook is like something which opens in a browser, and I will be showing you how that happens. So one of the biggest advantages of having Jupyter Notebook is, as I'll be showing you, it is also a great way not only just to have immediate results. I mean, like, I'm assuming many of you are engineers and you've used things like MATLAB or Scilab. And one of the advantages of having that is you can actually immediately see the result of any computation. And Jupyter Notebook gives you almost a similar feeling. Now, in addition to Jupyter Notebook also has certain other advantages, such as it has interactive help and some others. Now, in the meantime, I'll just, since this is installing, does anyone have any doubts about what I'm doing?
Yeah, so I did the installation for Windows. I think there was a update from you that you would be using Linux for this.
Yeah.
But is it possible to go through the Windows environment for this, or?
Well, like I said, I don't usually use Windows, but in Windows, if you go to your start menu, you will see in there, there'll be a folder called Anaconda 3.
Yes, and there I think there is like Jupyter as well as Spider.
I would say my recommendation to you is to not use those directly, because then you'll be stuck with a base environment.
Okay.
My recommendation is open Anaconda prompt. There will be something called Anaconda prompt.
Okay.
And Anaconda prompt will give you a similar command line.
Oops.
You should get something like a command line, just like CMD, anything.
Shikumar, I have a question here.
Yeah, go ahead.
So you have used Conda base installation, right? So so I have been using the virtual environment and pip for a while. So would you recommend using pip in this Conda environment interchangeably, for that matter, or
You can, but usually the way it is that Conda is like, if you're using pip completely, then in that case, you can even, because pip is actually lighter than Anaconda, which is why a lot
yeah,
of developers
yes,
prefer pip. So
yep,
if you're using pip, then you don't even need Anaconda actually. Anaconda, the reason why I suggested is because it is cross-platform. So a lot of people, whichever platform you use, can access Anaconda. But if you're using pip already, then that's even better than Anaconda. So I would say you don't have to use Anaconda in that case. You can just go with pip,
okay,
because pip usually has more packages than Anaconda. So
yeah,
even in Conda, you will sometimes you'll be forced to install using pip because Anaconda doesn't have it yet.
yeah. So that's the reason I asked. So having said that, did you foresee or in the past any compatibility issues with the pip
I don't
in
think
Conda
so.
environment?
No, I don't think so. I think it should be okay. If you're using pip in Conda, it should be okay. So
Okay, thanks.
yeah. All right. So I will just go on for now. I will install Jupyter Notebook. In my case, it's not really downloading that much, and the reason for that is because I already have most of them installed. So therefore, it just takes everything from the local cache. In some cases, it'll actually install from the internet. So depending on the requirement. So in my case, probably the reason why I downloaded Python was because the version of Python has probably changed since the last time I downloaded. That's probably why it happened. So this is one of the advantages of using pip or Anaconda, is that it takes care of all the dependencies. So this is the package which I actually asked for, and these are all the dependencies, and it takes care of everything.
Yeah,
So while this is installing, does anyone else have any general doubt about anything? Just Python, Jupyter, anything?
Hello.
Okay, go ahead.
I have installed this Anaconda on my Windows application. So in that it is already having this Jupyter Notebook pre-installed. So do I have to install it again?
The reason, like I said, even to the previous person, is try to start a new, create an environment. Because what will
Okay.
happen is, if you install just Jupyter, later on, if you're trying to do anything in artificial intelligence or machine learning, and you need some special package, like you need scikit-learn or anything like that, you will not be able to access it. So whereas if
Okay.
you install it the way I'm doing, creating an environment and then installing packages, then you can access any package that is available with Python. So for example, later on, if you're doing something like natural language processing, that has a separate package. With Jupyter, you may not be, if you use the default Jupyter, you will only have the base environment. So you may not have that package.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that's it. So if there's no other doubt, I'll just launch the Jupyter Notebook. So when you launch Jupyter Notebook, it will launch it in a web browser, and it is usually your default web browser. Now, my default web browser is Firefox, but as you can see, it will tell you that if you want, you can just copy paste these links in any browser. So I'm going to just copy this. Like, I don't usually use Firefox, but I still haven't bothered to change it. So I'm just going to copy this link and paste it in my Google Chrome. So this opens Jupyter Notebook in your web browser. Now, the advantage of this is now we can actually go ahead and create what is called as a notebook. So before that, first I will just go and create a new folder once. And in that folder, now what we have to do is you have to create what is called as a notebook, right? So there are several options. You can have notebook, text file, folder, terminal. I just chose folder before, but what you should use is what is a Python 3 notebook, right? So notebook is an interactive terminal which is in your browser. So I'm going to click on that, and this is what it gives you. Okay, so I'm not sure if you guys are doing it with me. If you are, then you will probably see this as well. I hope everyone is, or if you have any doubts, please do ask. All right, so the first thing you need to understand is that in this, you have several cells. So we come up with a default cell. Now, we can type anything in this, which is a Python command. So for example, the simplest Python command is what you can say, hello world. Right? This is one of the simplest. Now, to be able to run this, there are two methods. So for example, you can just go click run cell, or you can actually, the simplest method, which I usually use, is just press shift and enter, right? So this is what happens when you press shift and enter, it executes a certain cell and you get the output almost immediately, right? And there are also several things you can do. For example, you can do a is equal to 2, b is equal to 5, c is equal to 2 plus 5, or rather c is equal to a plus b rather. There was no use of declaring the variables otherwise. So now in any of the cells, you can access any of the variables. So for example, I can access A, I can access B. In all these cases, I'm pressing shift and enter. It's important to understand shift and enter. So this is how you can execute Python commands interactive. And this is what we use in these lecture series, because it's one of the easiest ways to sort of see your output almost immediately. Nowadays, even many interviews are actually saying, just give us a Python notebook. You don't have to actually write code. Just give us a Python notebook so that we can execute everything and see it in place. So does anyone have any doubts so far?
The environment that you created earlier, do you see that here or no?
No, oh no, the environment, you don't see it here because now you opened it in a browser. So therefore, you are still in the environment because Jupyter Notebook has been executed within the environment. And since Jupyter Notebook has been executed in the environment, you have access within this browser to everything that is there in the environment, all packages, all software, everything.
So the environment is not like a folder that you can see like with a name called Learn Python.
Actually, there is. So for example, let me just go and show you. So I'll just open a new tab. If you go, you will see a folder called Anaconda 3. All right. And this, depending on your operating system, for example, when you installed it, right, it would show you, it'll give you like, these are the information about the environment, right? So like, for example, this is how you find out about your environment. So there's a wrong typo there. And if you see, these are the directories in which the environment software is stored. So there is an environment inside this called learn Python. All right. And similarly, you can run this command anywhere, in Windows, in Mac, anywhere. It'll always show you the directory in which that particular environment, the softwares are contained. So for example, here I can go to Conda. And there are environments. Let me just clear this a little. And there is learn Python. So learn Python, this is where all the files are stored. So for example, there is a bin, there is a lib, all these. So it's almost like a sub Linux system within a folder.
Okay.
All right. So since, as I said, this is only going to be 30 minutes, we are almost out of time for this one thing. So I'll just quickly go through maybe the very first one, that is, I'll talk about, let's say, numbers. So the first thing we need to know about in Python is everything is an object. All right. So even, for example, something like A, we gave it a number. The first thing you need to know also, next thing is Python has no types. So for example, if you're coming in from a background in C, C++, Java, JavaScript, you would have to do int A is equal to 2. All right. This is very common. Now, in Python, there is no need to specify the type. In Python, A is an object. And when you give an object a value, Python automatically figures out what the type of this object is. So for example, if I say type A, you can find out the type of the object. In this case, it's an integer. That's why you say int. Let's say I say something like the 3.141, which is pi. And I say type of B, it will say float, right? So Python automatically determines the type of a particular object when you assign it a value. You do not have to declare any variable, right? The second thing is, even though you have something as primitive or as basic as an integer or a float, these are still objects. What that means is an object has methods and attributes. So for example, if I say a dot and I press tab, right? I'm pressing tab. So when you press tab, it gives you the options with this particular object. So for example, these are all the various attributes that it has. So for example, it has an imaginary part, which is of course 0. It has a real part, which is the same as the actual value because it's a real number. You can express it as denominator, numerator. You can have a conjugate if it's a complex number, or you can even say something like as integer ratio. So for example, if you do as integer ratio, it gives you a function because this is actually a function. So we can actually execute this and this is what you get. Oh wow, they actually removed the 30-minute, 40-minute. I'm not surprised. Well, anyway, so we can keep going for a while because I thought I'll have to shut down. So this is one of the advantages of having Python, because everything is an object, and an object also has certain methods to it. Now, at this point, I'll take a pause and I'll ask, does anyone have any doubts? Okay, I take it no one does. So the next thing is about types and floats is that you can do all the basic calculations. So for example, you can do things like 2 divided by 3 and things like that. Now, If you're coming in from a background like C or Java or JavaScript, when you divide an integer by another integer like this, you actually will get an integer. This is called integer division. Now in Python 2, this one would actually give you an integer, and that integer would be 0, right? But in Python 3, they changed it saying that division will always be exact, right? If you want to do integer division, we do something like this. That is a double slash, all right? A double backslash, of however you say it. So this is what is an integer division. Other than that, there are the usual things. You can say 2 plus 3 into 4.1 plus 6.2, and you can divide the whole thing by something. These are all the usual mathematical expressions that are available with Python as it is with MATLAB or C, C++, Java, anything. So this isn't very different. Now, there are a few interesting things about Python, and that comes when you start talking with respect to objects. So for example, the first thing I'm going to talk about is, before I start talking about objects, I'd like to know, is everyone comfortable with the concept of object-oriented programming systems?
Yeah.
Okay, so in this, what we'll talk about is in most languages like C, C++, Java, there is the concept of an array. All right. Now, an array is an ordered collection of objects. That means you place objects in a certain order, one after the other, and that order is very important, right? In Python, an array, in basic Python, that is, an array is basically a list, right? Now, again, if you're coming in from a C background or Java or anything else, you would have to declare the array beforehand and also declare how many elements are there in the array. So for example, you might have to do something like int a of 10 or something like that in C, all right? This is very common. You can't just write whatever you want in an array. But in Python, the advantage is you just have to declare it. So for example, I can say something like 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and it gives you a list. So this is called a list. So we can always type, and you see it is list. So the list is basically an equivalent of an array in almost any other programming language, right? The best part about lists in Python is they don't have to be the same type. Now here I put 1, 2, 3, 4, but I could very well do something like, and I could even put something like, and this is perfectly okay. So I have combined the biggest advantage of lists in Python is they can combine different types of objects all together. So you do not have to have the same type assigned a particular memory location as you would do in C, C++, or Java. Here you can combine them all together and have conjugate objects. So does anyone have any doubts so far? Okay, so I'll just keep going. The next thing is, just like in any of them, you can access any particular element of the array by just using the index. Now, index starts from 0, just like it does in C or Java or C++ or anything else. If you're coming from a MATLAB background, the index of an array would start from 1. Here it starts from 0. All right. So to know how many elements are there in the array, we just use length array1. So it tells you there are four elements. So this is an inbuilt function with Python, length. It gives you the length of an object. Now, To know how to use a particular function, the best way to do is start typing, press tab, and it tells you what are your options. So in my case, I have length. Open the bracket and type, press shift and tab. And this opens up the help of the particular function. So it tells you that this returns the number of items contained in a container, right? So this is how you can get interactive help with Jupyter Python, right? So now what this means is in this array, I can access elements up to 3. Okay, because as I said, it starts at 0 and goes up to 1. So you can have array 3, 2, and 1. But if I try to access something more, that is something greater, it'll give you a list index out of range, right? Because you're trying to access an element that does not exist. Okay, so again, anyone has any doubts? Okay, so there's only one other very interesting feature in Python, and that is even though you cannot access an element greater than the length of the array, there is a very cool feature, and that is you can put a negative index. Now, 0 means it is the 0th element of the array. So it's like, I'll just type it again. These are the elements. So 0 gives the very first element or the 0th element, however you want to say it. But if I say -1, it actually rewinds it to the last element. So 0 is the 0th element and -1 goes all the way back. So if you use minus indices, you are actually moving the array in reverse. So you could say -2, -3, and -4. And as before, there is always a limit. You cannot access an element that does not exist. So this is a very convenient way to traverse an array in the reverse direction. That is by using negative indices. So as again, just a question, has anyone any doubt? Okay, so before I'll just wind up this lecture very soon because I guess it's also getting late there and I'll have to get back to work. So the last thing I'll talk about is how do you usually create arrays in Python. So for that, we have what is called as the range object. So if you type range, this is an inbuilt Python function, and this will give you an object with as many elements as you say. So for example, let me open the help. And here you see the help is fairly detailed. The way to say it is this. Range, you can specify it in different ways, and these are the different ways. The first is you can just say range stop. And that means that you are specifying only where you want to stop the range, because the start is at 0, is implied at 0. Always the stop has to be an integer. You could additionally specify a start, a stop, and also a step, right? So let's try that out. Supposing I say something like range of 4, all right? It gives you back this object. So let me just put and let me type the type of this array is a range object, right? But you can convert this to a list with a very simple method called the list method. The list function will convert a range object to a list. So if you see, your array 4, which has been which casts this array 3 as a list, is now a list just like what we got before. So again, just a question, does anyone have any doubt?
I have a doubt here. We did not define the elements, but it took like from 0, 1, 2, 3. So what is that?
Exactly, like I said, just I would say look into this method, and I would say the best way to actually learn about it is to look at it. So look at what's happening. It returns an object that produces a sequence of integers, right? It requires always
Okay.
integers from start inclusive to stop exclusive. So you see, it's very important to understand inclusive and exclusive. So here we said range of 4. We are specifying the stop, but it is exclusive, which means it will not go up to the stop. It will stop 1 before that. So that's why it gives 0, 1, 2, 3.
Okay. And this range function we use only for the integers, not for the other types, right?
Yeah, it's only for integers. Yes.
Okay. But it is possible to define an array which has some elements from integer, some from float. So that is
Oh,
possible,
yes.
right?
Oh, yes. You can mix anything. You can even put in a string. You can actually even put another list inside a list. So you can have multi-dimensional lists, all those things.
Yeah, but that is not possible with the range.
That is not possible with range. Yes. But I will show
Okay,
you
okay. Now
how
it's
in the
clear.
next, how you can actually, there's something called list comprehensions with which you can create one list using another list.
Okay.
Okay. So is there any other doubt? Okay, so I'll just keep going. So there is, as they say, you can also specify a start and a stop. So for example, if you do not specify, here we did not specify a start. The start is assumed as 0. Now, supposing I specify a start and a stop. So this means 3 is the start and 11 is the stop. So, okay, actually I should put this in a list because otherwise we won't see it. And you see, you get a list. Now you see that range, when I say range start to stop, it starts at the start, the specified start argument, and it stops 1 before the stop. Always 1 before the stop. It will not reach the stop argument. Now, with this, there is also another feature. In that, you can specify a start, a stop, and also a step. So for example, supposing I say 3, 4, and I give a step of 3. What this means is it's going to start at 3, it'll go up to 14, but it'll increment at 3 and not 1. Here I did not specify an increment. The increment, if you do not specify, it is always 1. But if you specify the increment is used. Actually, again, I should say list. So now you see the effect of the step. It starts at the start point, increments with the increment. So 3 plus 3 is equal to 6. It checks if it has reached the stop. If it has not reached the stop, it again increments by the step. So it becomes 9. And once again till 12. Now it does not go to 14 or 15. The reason is because if it increments the next one, that number is 15. 15 is greater than 14. So which means that number will not be included in the list, because a list will stop before the stop argument always. So does anyone have any doubt here? Okay, so I'll just show you one last feature of it and then I'll wind up this lecture. You can also specify a negative step. So for example, I could do 14.3 minus 2, right? And if I do this, it'll give me a reverse list. So here, the increment is negative. So therefore, it starts with the first element and it will decrement because the increment is negative. But again, it will stop before it reaches the last stop argument. So this is a way in which you can also create a negative list, or rather a descending list. So is there a doubt here? Okay, so I guess if there's no doubt, I will for today wind up this session. And as I said before, this will be recorded and it's going to be placed on YouTube. So if you have missed it or if you want to check it out later again, you're welcome. I'll put up the link very soon. Other than that, I would say I would put up the link for tomorrow's lecture again tonight. So there'll be a new meeting link because I will have to check when I have time for tomorrow's session. So as before, if you have any doubts, please do comment or message or do everything on the LinkedIn post where I upload this YouTube link. So I hope everyone enjoyed this session. So if you have any last concluding remarks, please do add them.
Yeah, Shukmar. Probably maybe we can just a brief talk on Python 2 versus 3 because some of these comments functions calls, right, like list may not be needed in Python 2. So having said that, I hope everyone is using Python 3 itself.
I would say if you're using Python 2, I hope you know what you're doing because Python 2 is not supported anymore. They have stopped supporting Python 2 since I think 2020. So for example, if you're now using Python 2 and if you have any bug issues or anything, they will not solve it. Python
Okay.
Foundation will not solve it. So therefore, it is recommended that everyone should migrate their projects to Python 3 because Python 2 is considered legacy software.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
Hello.
Yeah.
Sir, I just wanted to make a request. So here today, what we have done is that we have just taken one or few functions and understood how it is working. So I just wanted to make a request. Can we develop do a project-based approach, a very small project-based approach, so that we can unfollow the commands as it is required for the project. So
Yeah, no,
it will be
eventually, yes. Eventually, yes. Eventually, like I said, we will start with now basic, which is why I'm not going into like everything like strings and things like that because we don't need it that much. But
okay.
as we go on, the next we'll be doing very soon once we go through some basic Python. I'll be talking about a little more about list objects and things like that. We will then go on to functions, we'll go on to NumPy, and we'll go on to pandas, and then we can start doing some basic data sets and data manipulation. So then we'll be doing some basic projects. We can just pick some out of Kaggle or whatever.
Okay. And can I means I just wanted to know that can we have some small assignments so that we can have a follow back when every day when we were meeting, so we can have some doubts when we do some assignments.
See, in terms of things, the only thing I can suggest is like, if you have any if you have any questions or something like that, you can post it like 2 or 3 lectures before. Okay. So then then I can sort of like tell people that, okay, this is what we can talk about because I don't really have an agenda here, right?
Okay.
Because like I said, it is not possible for me to take somebody's online course and follow it because there will be intellectual property violations. So I have to choose only what is openly available. And for now, that is in Python or what is available in Kaggle. So if you have any other assignment that you are willing to share, then you can do so. But it's important to understand that you must be willing, you are the owner of that, and you are willing to disclose it to the public.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm just wondering, is there any other last comment? Otherwise, let's.
Yeah, I have completely shifted to Google Colab because I found installing packages on my PC machine was quite a headache when I, let's say, started working on application related to TensorFlow. So Google Colab also should be fine, right? For all the codes, any notebook can be run in Colab also, right? Whatever notebook we can follow along.
Yeah, I mean, see, it's like there are people who use just about, a matter of fact, you don't even need to use Jupyter. Really speaking,
Okay.
eventually when you start coding, you just write command, you just write your own Python files, that's it, and then compile them. So there is, so the only reason why I'm showing Jupyter Notebook is it's probably the easiest way to launch Python and get started. But there is no hard and fast rule that you must use Jupyter Notebook.
Okay. And apart from Collab, have you come across any other simpler, this cloud-based approach for running notebooks?
Not really, not that I know about.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, sure, welcome. Okay, so any other last doubt?
When you first install the command prompt, does it take a lot of time? I did this like towards the beginning of this lecture, and it's still my Anaconda navigator still says that it's launching the console shortcut, and there is like it's in the Windows environment. So I think it's taking a long time.
No, it should not take that much time to launch. I would suggest that you just check if if you have privileges to launch it. That is, have you installed it as a user or as an administrator or something like that? Just make sure, because I think it's Windows that's trying to stop it. Because it should launch almost immediately.
Okay, let me check.
Sure.
No, in Windows usually it takes some time, not as fast as Linux. That's what I observed.
No, he's saying even to get the command prompt, not Jupyter Notebook.
Okay.
Yeah, am I right with that? He's not even getting a command prompt, right?
Yeah, and it's like at the bottom I see something is running and I don't see a command prompt at all. So
yeah, no, I think then it's a permission issue. So just look into if the Windows Defender is trying to block anything that it sees as not Microsoft. All right, so I think this has been long enough. I think it went pretty well. I hope that I can keep going with this, and I hope you guys keep coming. So as before, I'll wind this up and maybe see you tomorrow. So I'll post the link soon. And everyone, thank you so much for coming. Take care, everyone.
Yep, thanks.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.